atmosphere was tense in Minneapolis. In the Minnesota Timberwolves' dominant 117-93 victory over the Golden State Warriors on Thursday, what stood out wasn't just a large margin, but what happened in the second quarter. Draymond Green, once again, was at the center of a controversial play. A technical foul for hitting Naz Reid's face with his arm reignited an old debate. How far can Draymond's intensity go? That was Green's fifth technical foul just in these playoffs. A number that is alarming. It's uncomfortable. It begins to paint a different narrative than the one that established the number 23 as one of the cornerstones of the San Francisco dynasty. On social media, the impact was immediate. Harsh criticisms, intense debates, and one question that seems increasingly difficult to ignore. How long will the Warriors continue to deal with this behavior? Draymond Green is more than just statistics. He is a presence, an emotional impact, for better or for worse. Since the early years of the Splash Brothers era, it was Draymond who gave Golden State its defensive soul. A player who celebrates, who provokes, who plays at the edge. But what happens when that edge is crossed? Repeatedly? On social media, the comments were almost unanimous. Patience seems to have run out. And the most concerning thing isn't just the number of technical fouls accumulated. It's the fact that, even under the spotlight, even amid frequent criticisms, he continues to cross the line, as if there are no more consequences, as if time were suspended in the past, a past in which everything was allowed because everything worked. But that time is over. If you truly follow the NBA, not just the highlights, but the behind the scenes, the details, the decisions that shape franchises, go ahead and leave a like here and subscribe to the channel. Because here we dive deep, beyond the stats, beyond the surface. This is where the game truly reveals itself. What we saw at the Target Center was more than just a simple loss. It was a collapse. Early on, the Timberwolves imposed a devastating pace. They opened up 13-0 before the Warriors even had a chance to breathe. Golden State's first points only came in the fifth-minute game, with 5 points from Jimmy Butler. But by this point, Minnesota had already set the tone. A physical tone. Intense. Relentless. Julius Randle showed up strong on offense, closing the first quarter with 9 points. On the other side, the Warriors looked slow, scattered, as if they were still trying to figure out where they were. The score difference was already 14 points by the end of the first quarter, 29-15. The second period brought a brief offensive breath for Golden State, but it wasn't enough. The team was still struggling on defense, unable to contain the home team's momentum. And that's when the game's most tense moment came. Draymond Green, while trying to move on the basket, hit Naz Reid's face with his arm. The referees didn't hesitate. Technical foul, game stopped, and the atmosphere changed. This type of play has become Draymond's trademark in recent years. But now, in 2025, in a playoff series where every detail matters, the impact of these actions becomes even more damaging. In the locker room, on the bench, in the team's on-court posture, the Warriors couldn't stay focused, and the Timberwolves remained ruthless. At halftime, the score already showed 56-39 in favor of Minnesota. After the break came what seemed to be the last breath, the famous third quarter of death, a hallmark of Golden State in recent seasons, was activated. The team went on a 19-9 run and cut the deficit to just 7 points, 65-58. For a brief moment, the game seemed alive, but it didn't last long. With successive offensive mistakes and defensive breakdowns, the Warriors saw the Wolves regain control quickly. Julius Randle hit a crucial basket. Anthony Edwards impacted again, even after suffering an ankle injury. He had to be carried to the locker room, but returned in full force. At the end of the third quarter, the lead was back to 20 points, 85-65. In the final period, and both teams, despite still playing well offensively, represents too late for a comeback. Buddy Hield tried to start a streak with a three-pointer, cutting the difference to 15 points. But the response came with authority. 6 consecutive points from Edwards and Randall. Minnesota sealed the game there. With 6 minutes left, both teams sent in their reserves. The game was already decided. And perhaps more than the series, the immediate future of the Warriors was put into question. What happens now? There are no trade rumors, no explosive public statements, but the wear and tear is visible, and even more troubling, predictable. When a team repeats the same mistakes for consecutive seasons, at some point, the consequences arrive, and they're knocking at the door. Draymond Green is part of the DNA of this team. But does he still represent the solution? Or has he become the biggest symptom of an era that refuses to accept its end? Comment below. Do you think the Warriors still have the strength to turn this series around? And Draymond, should he still be on the court? Or has the time for real change already passed? Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because the next game promises to be more than just a match. It could be the breaking point of a dynasty. And if that happens, the NBA will never be the same again. After a heavy loss in Minneapolis, the Warriors now face an even more challenging obstacle. If Draymond Green's technical foul had already raised questions about the team's attitude and consistency in crucial moments, now the situation seems even more dire. The Golden State Warriors, who had already been dealing with the absence of their star player at critical points in the season, now see Stephen Curry becoming the center of attention. But this time, not for his on-court talent, but for his injury. Curry, injured during Game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, was ruled out for the second game of the Western Conference semifinals. This was expected, but what really caught the Warriors by surprise was the extent of the injury. The strain to his hamstring, identified as grade 1, is no minor injury, and Stephen Curry, with his typical caution, made it clear that there is still no set timeline for his return. During practice on Thursday, Curry gave an honest interview, explaining that his recovery process is longer than he initially anticipated. This is new, and based on everything I'm learning about how quickly you can come back, there has to be a recovery process, Curry said, showing full awareness of the severity of the situation. You can't rush it. It's going to be one of those recoveries where you take more than a week, reevaluating every day to understand when it will be safe to even think about coming back to play. This revelation caught the Warriors at a critical moment in the series. Curry's absence for longer than expected puts the team in an uncomfortable position. Additionally, with Curry out for at least the first 2 games in San Francisco, the team will have to reinvent itself. Klay Thompson's role, for example, becomes even more crucial. The Warriors will undoubtedly feel the impact of playing without Curry, but the big question is, how long can they stay competitive without their primary offensive weapon? And the worst part for the Warriors is that Curry is not just recovering from a minor discomfort. The point guard can't even practice stationary shooting. He's on a long road, as he put it. This means that, contrary to what Golden State fans might expect, he won't be able to return quickly and easily, and the pressure on the team only increases. I know how tricky hamstring injuries can be. They can fool you and make you think you're recovered when you're actually not. Curry said with sincerity only he could have. This is the main reason the team needs to be cautious about their icon's return. After all, rushing a premature return could result in a much more severe injury, something that the Warriors can't afford to risk at this point. And even with Curry's loss, the Golden State Warriors showed they have the strength to move forward. The victory in Game 1, although tight, was crucial for the team. Without Curry on the court, the Warriors still managed to pull out a 99-88 win. The game wasn't easy. In fact, it was a battle. But Golden State's defense, led by Draymond Green and other players like Kevin Looney, was key to keeping the team in the fight. That was one of those games where team effort outweighed individual brilliance, and the Warriors managed at least to take a step forward in the series. Now, the big question is whether Golden State can maintain its competitive level without Curry for more time. Game 2 is approaching, and the absence of their point guard opens even more of a window for the Timberwolves. The Minnesota team has been showing strength, especially with players like Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert dominating the court. The dominant 117-93 win in Game 1 of the series demonstrated the intensity and momentum with which they play, a force against which Golden State cannot afford to slip. Once again, the responsibility falls on other Warriors players. Klay Thompson's performance will be critical. He has the ability, experience, and most importantly, the mentality to take charge in this moment. However, it's important to remember that Thompson has faced ups and downs in playoffs, and his consistency will be tested in an unforgiving way. With Curry sidelined, the Warriors need Thompson now more than ever. The responsibility also falls on other players like Jordan Poole, who has shown flashes of brilliance but also inconsistency. Poole needs to prove he can be the offensive leader Golden State needs, even though on paper he doesn't carry the same stature as Curry. Furthermore, Draymond Green, despite still playing already in the spotlight after his technical foul in the previous game, now needs to reinvent himself. If his on-court attitude was questioned before, now he needs to become a leader not just offensively, but emotionally for the team. Golden State can no longer rely solely on Curry to set the tone. They will need Green to elevate the team's collective level and inspire his teammates to rise above, especially in times of adversity. The big concern for all Warriors fans is, without Curry, will they be able to withstand the pressure from Minnesota? With the advantage of playing at home in the next 2 games, the Warriors have a unique opportunity to recover and, perhaps, take back control of the series. But Curry's absence makes this mission even more challenging. The pressure now is of a brutal intensity. What seemed to be a series where Golden State would enter as the favorite has now turned into a massive question mark. And the most important question is whether the Warriors, without Curry, can withstand the pressure, energy, and intensity of a young and confident team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. Game 2 will be a real test for everyone involved. Comment below. What do you think about the Golden State Warriors situation? Will the team survive the next games without Curry? And what will be the impact of his absence on the subsequent games in the series? How do you think the team's mentality will adjust? Let's discuss in the comments. And if you're following the series closely, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any details of this journey. After all, in a series like this, anything can happen, and the Warriors will have to fight for every point. The future of this team depends on how they reinvent themselves in the face of adversity.